I don't think I'm out of tune when I say nobody saw this coming. And that is the merger of the PGA Tour, the European Tour, and Live Golf. And Jay Moynihan, the commissioner of the PGA, had to go with the Saudi investment fund head of operations, their CEO, on CNBC almost a year to the date, where he talked about how PGA golfers don't have to apologize for playing PGA golf as opposed to Live Golf and their arrangement with Saudi Arabia and 9/11. So there was a lot of morality in play the last year, Joe. And here they are now together with the details of this merger not quite clear. But one thing I think everybody agrees on, Saudi money is going to win at the end of the day, and they won in this situation.
Yeah, everything I learned listening to the Wu-Tang Clan when I was in 7th grade, because cash rules everything around me.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing in the sense that it feels like we're no longer allowed to have principles in this world, right? That what wins here is not just cash, but the idea that this happened, if I could just boil this down to 10 seconds, this happened because each side was suing the other. And instead of sitting there and going, we're going to spend all kinds of money and perhaps disclose information that we don't want disclosed, it's easier for us to work out a deal and work together. Now, there's the key part, work together, because you're not really working together when the other guy has more money than you do, and the other guy is about to put his person in charge of your group.
Yeah.
So what happened there was you got bought.
Yes.
That's what happened.
That's what happened. You got bought.
You're not working together. You're not, there's no unity. There's no umbrella here.
No.
You sold your ass out.
No.
Okay. That's what happened.
You talk about Wu-Tang Clan being the thing that you learned lessons from. I learned lessons from the old WWF with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, when he would famously say, everybody's got a price. Yeah. And the Saudi government has that money.
Yeah. And it is disappointing, but it's also naive of me to say, well, you should stand on your principle. You should, strike out on your own. You should fight till the death. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not how it works in the real world. And it's golf. I get that. It's golf. But ultimately, I think the PGA Tour failed the players who were so public and vocal in their support of them. Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Will Zalatoris. These were all guys who were offered hundreds of millions of dollars to go join Live Golf and said no. Because maybe out of principle, I don't know. A lot of them do have a lot of money, but I think a lot of it was about the history of the tour and what it meant to them and the pursuit of that competition, the pursuit of those records, the pursuit of their place in history. And to turn around and make a deal with the Saudis after publicly questioning their motives feels to me like the moment, I don't even want to say it, although how young is our demographic?
Based on based on old radio data, males 25 to 54. Okay. So that's our main demographic. Although with YouTube, it's a little different. So
if you're under 12, put a little earmuffs on for me.
Okay.
This feels like the time I found out when Santa Claus wasn't real, or at least the Santa that we have caricature historically think of. You know what I mean?
I find this interesting. I find this interesting because this is the moment you realize it, because all this did was solidify my general feeling towards institutions and organizations, in that at the end of the day, organizations and institutions are going to do what's in their best interest, and your loyalty as an employee, somebody who rides for the PGA or the NFL or Major League Baseball, your wants, your loyalty is never rewarded. Loyalty is never rewarded in these cases. And I don't know, I guess maybe I feel something in common with Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy for the first time ever, because it's certainly not going to be in terms of the money they make. It's certainly not going to be in terms of their skill in playing golf. But now Rory, Tiger, you and me all have something in common. They were company men that went out there and promoted the PGA, only for the PGA to be like, yeah, appreciate your efforts, but we're doing something completely different that benefits us, because our bottom line is the thing that ultimately matters, not the principles. And I guess that's where I try to keep it consistent, and where I guess you and I differ on this topic, in that when it comes to sports, I know Santa Claus hasn't been real for a really long time. And once you accept that, you can then make your own personal bargain to still enjoy the sports, knowing full damn well that behind the scenes, the money that's being used to acquire teams, the money that's being used will be paid to people that are not exactly the best people on earth, but they're really good at a particular sport, or they're really good at coaching XYZ, and winning is ultimately what they want. The issue is when you position yourself morally as superior to another product only a year later to do the exact thing that you were blasting. And a year later, he's now addressing PGA players who are understandably upset that they got sold out this way after riding for the PGA and taking that moral ground, taking that moral stand, only to have him say, well, I was working with, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is what apparently he told players, and he told CNBC, I was working with the information that I had at the time. I guess the only information that's changed, Joe, is the money that's going to be coming their way going forward.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I'm 48, and I've talked about this before. Jeremy Glick is somebody, when I was a kid, I used to run around the Oradell Swim Club with. And if you're not familiar with Jeremy, he was on the flight that was headed for the Pentagon and was one of the true American heroes from that day. And Christy Simone is a kid I grew up playing football with, went to high school with, worked in the towers. And listen, like I told you, it's disappointing to think that principles can't exist.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing to have the realization, because I think you're right. You know about Santa, and especially in sports, and you realize it.
Yeah.
But I do feel like also something happens in sports always. Because remember, and you can call me Pollyanna, you can call me naive, you can call me whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
After everything we went through in the pandemic, sports was the one thing, and always has been the one thing, that has been equal.
Yeah.
Always. No matter your color, no matter your economic background, no matter how you got to this country, no matter how you got to your sport, it was always equal. Everyone had the same chance, right? And there's always a moment, and let's just use this year, right? We have the Stadium Series, and you and I spent a lot of time. You and I spent a lot of time talking about traffic and parking and those other things. Right. But the one thing that happened was the lights went out in that stadium. The place was full, and you look around and you go, "This is really fucking cool."
Yeah,
Yeah. And you're there with 58,000 other people, and you're going, "This is what it's about." So that's where I always come to sports. And I always try to get back to sports. Where do you have those moments?
Yeah.
Whether it's an ACC tournament, whether it's the NCAA tournament, whether it's a football game, a State Carolina game, a Duke Carolina basketball game, you have moments as a fan where you experience them. You were there K's last game at Cameron. Yeah. Like, you have these moments. We were there at the Final Four. Mm-hmm. You have these moments that become benchmarks in your life. And without them, and you're right, as you like to tell me, what is it? Only 20% of the people really care about sports.
Yeah, I was going to say that's that. But to your point,
but it is like the one community thing I feel like we still have,
and it still exists.
But to wake up this morning, it's just kind of like,
no, I'm with you on that. And again, this is where I get back to the bargain you have to make with yourself. All right. I mean, we do it with the NFL all the time. We do it with football all the time.
Yes.
You have to make the bargain with yourself as to whether or not you can separate all the bad things that happen for that community aspect that you just brought up. Because you're right. It brings people together. It puts a lot of like-minded people together from all sorts of backgrounds into share an enjoyment of this one particular sport. But don't look too deep sometimes.
Right.
Don't look too deep. That's
let's
true.
Have the good moments outnumber these lousy moments. How about that?
But as with all things, when it comes to entertainment, music, movies, sports, to me, I all lump them together. One is not any more greater than the other. It all brings enjoyment to somebody in some form or fashion. But you can never look too deep, because ultimately you're going to be disappointed by the artist who has a problematic background, and you still decide to listen to their music, right? And in the case of sports, when the whole NBA China thing was going on, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, all right, you're taking a moralistic stand on the NBA and China while you go to Disney. And Disney has a lot of money invested in China. You're doing all of this while you are literally tweeting it out on your phone or on an Apple product. Where was that made? Okay. Now, I'm not trying to be like, oh, you participate in society. Right. I'm very, very, very smart. No, that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is, when you start looking deeper into these issues, you start to find out going, oh, man, can I really enjoy anything? So you have to make those decisions.
We all got. Yeah.
We all have got, man. And once you accept that, you can kind of like understand the decision you've made. Sometimes it's mental gymnastics. I'm not acting like I'm some enlightened galaxy brain person here. There are times where I walk away going, why do I still even want to watch this stuff? Knowing all the things that are going on behind the scenes. And the PGA Tour finds itself in the same boat. They're no different than any other entity going forward. And we'll close this conversation on this idea that I keep hearing, grow the game. It's going to grow the game. No, it's going to grow your bank account. It's because I want people to show me where Live Golf was doing anything to make the game better. The ratings were terrible. They had no television deal. The team aspect of it was dumb and corny, right? And I do feel that this, again, is a lesson to be learned, that the United States is going to have to get comfortable with the fact that there's another entity that has way more money than it does, and has way more money than the richest people in this country. And that money is going to win every single time. You like F1? Do a little more digging. You like the EPL? Do a little more digging. It's just now creeping over to the United States, and we're going to have a hard time processing all of this while we enjoy our sports.